Hello, I'm Nick Griffith, and this is my book talk on While Idaho Slept by J. Reuben Apelman. It's a very haunting true crime book about the 2022 murders of four University of Idaho students in the college town of Moscow. The story digs very deep into the lives of the victims, the community, the investigation, and also the man accused of committing this horrific crime. The 37-member Moscow Police Department had its first murder case in 7 years, a quadruple homicide. Four University of Idaho students had been stabbed to death overnight in an off campus house. In my opinion, this quote captures just how unthinkable the murders were. This all happened in a very small town with a very small police force, and they were all totally unprepared for something of this magnitude, this violent, and this complex. While Idaho Slept begins by painting a picture of Moscow, Idaho, a very quiet, very safe town that hadn't seen a murder in years. That all sadly changed on November 13th, 2022, when four students were brutally murdered in their home while two others slept nearby. Apelman's writing blends journalism and empathy. He tells the story through very short chapters, first person accounts, and factual reporting, exploring not only the case, but the emotional toll it took on the town, the families, and the public. Ethan Chapin was a freshman at the University of Idaho. He wasn't a resident of the house, but had only stayed the night with his girlfriend, Xana Kernodle. Ethan was known for being very athletic, very full of life, and one of three siblings. He was actually a triplet. Friends and family remember him as being very outgoing and very joyful. Madison Mogan was a senior in one of the house's residents. She had been best friends with Kaylee, another victim, since childhood, and she was very funny, very confident, and always seemed to bring people together. And then we have Xana Kernodle, who was also a resident and was very energetic and very hardworking. She balanced classes with a job, and her relationship with Ethan was described as very happy and very full of love. All three had been out that night. Ethan and Xana was at a frat party, and Madison was with Kaylee at a local bar and food truck before turning home. Kaylee Gonzalez was just weeks away from graduating early. She had a job lined up in Texas and had come home that week to visit friends and show off her new car. She and Madison, who were extremely close, were sleeping in the same bed that night, something they did very often. Dylan Mortensen was one of the surviving roommates, was also in the house. According to reports, she saw a masked man by her room, but didn't understand what had actually happened until hours later. Then there's Brian Koberger, the man arrested for the murders. He was a criminology PhD student from a nearby university in Washington state. His arrest shocked the public, not only because of who he was, but because of how carefully the crime seemed to have been planned. The gap between his academic focus and the alleged brutality of his actions makes this case so much more disturbing. In the early hours of November 13th, someone entered the house. There was no signs of forced entry, and the police believe that the front door may have been unlocked. The killer went upstairs, where Madison and Kaylee were sleeping, then moved downstairs to attack Xana and Ethan. The attacks were so brutal and mostly silent. Some of the victims were asleep, while others appeared to have fought back. and it all happened within a very short window of time, likely between 3 and 4 a.m. The police were not called until nearly noon when a roommate found a body and called for help. By the time investigators arrived, the crime scene was very chaotic. The killer was gone, the town was in shock, and the national media had descended. For weeks, there were no answers. People were very scared, students left campus, and everyone was a suspect until the focus turned to Koberger. Here's the timeline. On November 13th, the murders occurred early that morning and later that day at around noon when the police arrived. Later in November, investigators began searching for a white Hyundai Tucson seen near the scene. In December 30th, Brian Koberger was officially arrested in Pennsylvania, way across the country from Idaho. And in January 2023, until this day, Koberger has been extradited to Idaho and formally charged with 4 counts of murder. He still has not pleaded guilty, and his trial is still pending, and the case continues to evolve, and new pieces of evidence found almost every month. My personal connection with this was that I was reading about people almost our age, living in a college town, going to parties, making plans. That all really hit me, especially because we are about to go into college soon. It reminded me of how random tragedy can be and how it can happen to literally anyone, anywhere. It made me think of shows like Dateline or 48 Hours, but this felt so much more real and so much more personal. Probably because it happened so recently and to people who felt so familiar. My academic response was that this book isn't that hard to read in terms of its vocabulary, but the emotional weight is extremely heavy. Appleman does a very good job in writing very short chapters, very strong pacing, while having a respectful tone. He balances fact and feeling and avoids turning this into a thriller. Instead, he focuses on the truth, the trauma, and the ripple effect of violence. What stood out most to me was how he gave the victims their voices back. They're not just names anymore. They're people in a book with full backstories. In conclusion, I would probably recommend this book to anyone interested in true crime, justice, or investigative journalism. It's not just about the murders, it's about the town, the grief, and the search for the truth. If you want a fast, factual, yet very emotionally grounded read, this is a very strong choice. My biggest takeaway from this book was how easily lives can be shattered by a single moment and how long it takes to pick up the pieces. Thanks for watching my book talk on While Idaho Slept. The story will stick with me for a very long time, not just because of the crime, but because of who the victims were. I hope this presentation helped you understand the depth of the book and why it matters. Thank you.